everyone, welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and we're here today to talk about the Survivor 48 finale, as well as the first 5 episodes of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives Season 2. There was so much that happened this season that dropped all at once on Hulu that we decided to cut it into 2 parts so that we can go a little bit deeper into all the drama and everything that happens. So we're just going to be talking about the first 5 episodes today, and then next week we'll talk about the second half. So, Molly, how are you, first of all? How's your Memorial Day weekend?
It's good. I've been enjoying the weather. It's hot here in Texas, but it's still nice at least to go by the pool and hang out with friends. So it's been a good weekend. How about you?
Yeah, no, it's been good. I mean, like you said, it's crazy hot here, but it's a good time for pools and everything like that Memorial Day is all about. And so it's been pretty good weather for that, which is nice. But let's get started with a show that is also outdoors in sometimes the burning heat, Survivor. Survivor 48 has come to a close. Molly, first of all, what were your overall thoughts on this finale? Do you feel like Survivor 48 stuck the landing?
Yeah, I enjoyed the finale. I mean, obviously, I might be biased, but I'm also happy who won this season because he was on my draft team. So I chose correctly. But
Yes, you did. Congratulations.
thank you. But I feel like overall we got like a full picture of what obviously like we knew the final five. There was a lot going into that. We obviously discussed a lot of that, but I feel like it overall like it satisfied what I wanted out of the finale.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I feel like people were so down on 48 for so long, and we've, talked it to death. But I agree that I think that this winner with Kyle winning and just overall how the finale unfolded, I do think that it's going to help the season when we look back in a couple years. We'll think of it more fondly than I think we would have had someone else won and maybe that felt a little bit less deserving or like they just kind of rode a big alliance all the way to the end and have to do too much. Kyle really did have to fight to get there and played very strategically along the way. And so I do think that having a winner like that will really help to make the season bump up a few notches in people's season rankings. So I was very happy overall.
Yes, agreed.
Well, let's get into the episode then. So, the final 5 start out by finding a sign at camp in front of podiums with each of their names and a puzzle lock. They're competing for an advantage at the next immunity challenge. So, in order to win that, they have to use the symbols around camp to crack the code and enter the correct word into the puzzle lock. So, it's very much kind of reminiscent of the very early days of the season where they had the beware advantages and every camp had a little bit of a different game that they had to do to find that with all the clues and the puzzle locks. And so I liked this. It felt very full circle for the season. I thought this was a fun and creative way to kind of reference back to that and have one last chance to use those signs with all the animal symbols and everything at camp and use it in a little bit of a different way here.
Yeah, I agree. I liked seeing that it came full circle from what we saw obviously earlier in the season. So it was nice to see them bring that back.
Yeah, so Eva ends up winning this. The word was secure. So I mean, I'm so glad that Eva finally won an advantage in this game. It's been so long, and we find out when we get to the immunity challenge what that advantage is. So she ends up not having to throw her ball into the basket. She ends up just having to place it in there, which saves some time. So the challenge, just to kind of get to that a little bit, is they have to race up over a steep ramp and through a muddy net, throw a ball at a target, and maneuver it through a long cage. Once the ball's free, they toss it into a basket, revealing numbers. Use those numbers to retrieve a key, and then race to the top of a ramp and use that key to unlock pieces to solve a fire puzzle. So, after a coming from behind, Camilla ends up getting to the puzzle last, but somehow doing an incredible job and finishing first. And she wins immunity and reward here. So, Molly, what were your thoughts when Camilla had that come from behind victory there?
I was so excited for Camilla. Obviously, she's also one of my favorites from this season. So I felt like she definitely deserved this win. And I just was happy to see that at this point, like, obviously, like, we obviously see the strong competitors of like Kyle and Joe, but it's nice to see that Camilla won this one. Because at first, like, I was like, oh, Joe's going to have this. Like, but then he couldn't do the puzzle. So that made it for an exciting end there because obviously the puzzle was hard here, so it made it hard for people to finish.
Yeah, no, I think that that's something that we talk about like with Big Brother a lot is these challenges are so like in recent seasons and 26 was better, but like especially I think 25 was like the height of this where it was like every challenge was just physical. And it was like people, like Suri and America and Felicia, it's like you want all of these people to have a equal chance of winning it and not just have Jag and Matt win everything. And that's, I think that people sometimes complain about survivor challenges where it's like, why does every challenge have to have a puzzle, end with a puzzle and start with something physical? It's like the challenges seem kind of like repetitive and boring to a degree. But I think that it's so important that every challenge does have a physical element and a puzzle element, a mental element where anyone can win because every part of that is tested. And so everyone, Camilla has a chance to struggle a bit at the physical part of it, but come back if you're good enough at puzzles, she can come back from behind and still win it. And that's so important, I think. And sure, they could probably do a better job of making the challenges feel a little bit unique and different from one another. But I think overall, Survivor does such an incredible job of making these challenges to where you really never know who's going to win it.
Yeah, I agree. It's great to see that because I mean, I also think like overall this puzzle, like I probably wouldn't have gotten to it as quickly as Camilla did. Like she did such a good job here, which was impressive too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Camilla's incredible at puzzles. That is something that is definitely her strong suit.
Yeah, because that's why when she was so behind, I was like, honestly, I felt like they're editing that way so that it made it for the comeback. So I was actually I was happy
Hmm.
and a little bit surprised, but not as surprised as I would have been if I didn't know how strong Camilla was at the puzzles and everyone else was just
Yep.
like going slow at them. I was like, I think Camilla can win it, and then she did.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Well, she not only wins immunity, but she also wins reward. So she gets to choose someone to go on a reward with her to the sanctuary where good things happen. And she chooses Eva. So what did you think of that choice?
I thought it made sense in this moment just because she wanted to make sure that like I don't know. I think at this point, like the gameplay, she knows she's safe. She wants to make sure that she can also make it another day in general, or that Eva wants to be comfortable there and just have her on her side. So I think that just solidified that they're in a close partnership or allies there.
Yeah, I think at this point in the game, like, I don't know if she could have picked someone bad. I think
Yeah,
Kyle's probably the only person that she should not have chosen because they obviously are trying to keep their partnership a secret. And so, not as long as she didn't choose Kyle, I feel like anyone else, it was pretty much going to be an equal fair game choice.
yeah,
So, while they're back at camp, there's really very little scrambling here. Everyone agrees to vote Mitch. Mitch tries to kind of say like, "Oh, Joe's a big threat. I'm not a threat, and I'm not going to win any jury votes." But everyone's pretty convinced that the jury loves Mitch. Everyone loves Mitch. That nobody wants to sit next to him at Final Three. I don't know. I really don't know. I think that this season the editing has tricked us a little bit in terms of I think not necessarily giving us an accurate view of, seemingly at least, of how the jury was feeling about these contestants. I miss the Ponderosa videos that we used to get where we really got like a deeper look at the jurors when they leave and kind of what their thought process is of what was going on in the game at that time. And as someone enters, you kind of hear the jurors who are already there like kind of talk about the game, and I feel like that gave us such a better sense of kind of how everyone was feeling. And I don't know that we got, I feel like everyone thinks like oh, Joe and Eva are such big threats. Like they're gonna win at the end if they get there. Like they're controlling the game, but it really didn't feel like the jury respected their games. And so we think that Mitch has no chance if he gets to final three. He's gonna be a zero vote finalist, but maybe the jury did love Mitch enough to where if he was sitting next to Joe and Eva, he could have at least gotten some votes. Like I really don't know.
I know. Looking back on it too, I was thinking the same thing of like, well, we don't know entirely of what they were thinking, and obviously on our side, we're like, well, yeah, obviously you'd take Mitch, like he's not gonna win, but
Hmm.
now we saw what happened. Like even Joe, he only got one vote, you know. So it was like, well, maybe the jury did respect Mitch more than Joe, but obviously I feel like this is what made sense in the moment here, just for the rest of the tribe, just because everyone else was so close and they had kind of already all agreed to go with each other in a way to Final Four. So Mitch was just that easy one out at this point, which was sad, but also at least Mitch wasn't blindsided here. Like I kind of was happy in a way that he knew what was coming so we could like mentally prepare it and like obviously that's not a good feeling, but it's a good enough feeling that you were respected, that like you were told, oh, you're going to be voted out here.
Yeah.
So it was heartwarming to see it, even if it was sad.
Yeah, there was no suspense, but it was still like a nice moment to watch of just kind of every Mitch like being grateful for the game and to be able to play and just kind of everyone, respecting him and sending him off here. But yeah, no, I think this was a very different type of tribal and where there was really no suspense. They didn't even try to make it suspenseful. Mitch is voted out here, and the next morning, Kyle and Camilla agree that their best path to victory for each of them is to sit next to Joe and Eva rather than each other. I think they both seem to realize that there's no hard feelings there. It's basically just, may the best man or woman win here. And what did you think of that? Like, do you think that that's true? That for each of them, that their best chance was against Joe and Eva. Obviously, we see it worked out with Kyle, but do you think that if Camilla were to have made it there, that she should have wanted to sit next to just Joe and Eva, or Kyle and one of Joe and Eva?
I think it made it easier for one of them to be sitting there versus both of them for them to win it all. But I think they both still would have had the chance to win it if they were both there as well. Like, especially now seeing back of like, well, everyone respected more of like Kyle and Camilla's gameplay than they did of Joe and Eva's. So I don't know how that would have worked out, like who they would have favored if it was Kyle or Camilla in that situation. But I mean, they kind of mentioned they really liked Camilla, and also in the part of like the after
Hmm.
jury part or the finale. What is it called?
The after show,
The
yeah.
after show. Yeah, that they're just sitting right there after final tribal.
Hmm. Pizza
But
party, yeah.
yeah, but I feel like I don't know. I think they were smart to say that to each other in that moment, though. Like I think it did, generally speaking, make sense for that to happen.
Yeah, I think this was interesting because I feel like on its face, you would think that they would both want to try to get there together, ideally. But then, when I really do think about it, I think that it did help for Camilla to be in the jury for Kyle because she was able to be his number one supporter to be like, yeah, we were super close. We did have the secret alliance that none of you knew about. Whereas I think if they had been there together, sure, that would have been brought up still. But then they're both going to try to make it seem like they were the one who was in control of it. And they're going to be trying to both, make the jury think that they were the one who came up with this idea and were the one in control of this alliance. Whereas now, with one of them on the jury, they're able to just be their biggest supporter, the other one's biggest supporter. And so Camilla was able to be like, yeah, Kyle did all this that you didn't know about. Kyle was, playing this game so much better instead of trying to take any of that credit for herself. And so then I think it really makes the jury like really respect Kyle's game so much where otherwise it would have been like, well, okay, we're finding out all this information right now about the fact that you two were so close together and you're both kind of trying to make the point that you're the one in control. Like we don't know who to believe. So I think that this really did help Kyle, and I don't know, maybe he would have won regardless. Maybe Camilla would have, like you said at the after show, they were all like, "Yeah, Camilla, unanimous vote. We love Camilla." So Who knows? She could have been sitting next to anyone and ended up winning. But I think overall for Kyle at least, this was a really huge help to have
Yeah.
Camilla on the jury.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, then we do get to the immunity challenge, and it's emotion. They make a huge deal out of this as being like this iconic immunity challenge, which was in the running for season 50 final immunity challenge in that vote. Which look, I don't think of like Samotion's fine. I don't know. I don't have anything against it, but like I don't know that it's the most iconic Survivor challenge of all time. I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah, I was annoyed. I don't want to see it always though. Like it's okay to
Yeah.
have it every once in a while, but for it to always be that final immunity, and that's what means so much because then you're getting to the final three and you get to choose. Like just if you miss the ball, you're not gonna make it. It had a lot of stakes on it, and I feel like because of that, I don't love that it's just this kind of game. Like I wish there was more
Mm-hmm.
to it.
Yeah, I think that it seems to be like the even seasons have some motion now in the new era. Like I think they didn't do it last season, but they did it, yeah, I think 42, 44, and 46, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems like once a year we get it, which, it's fine. I don't have anything against it as a challenge. I think that it's one of those that anyone can win, which is good. I'd rather this than like just a strictly physical challenge. Like if they were to do like just hanging on the pole when they get rid of like the footholds now, that it's just, pure upper body strength, like that would annoy me as the final immunity challenge. But like I love something where it's just like, how bad do you want it? For the final immunity, it's like this is something that technically you could do, like the pressure cooker on Big Brother, for example. I think that's a perfect like final immunity challenge for Survivor. Like hold on to this thing as long as you can, but it's like not just like, the pull where it's like you physically can't do it if you don't have a certain amount of strength. But like yeah, I just think that the buoy that they did on Survivor Palau is so iconic that lasted like 12 hours. Like I just think of those as like the classic final immunity, like hand on a pole. Like those types of things I love because they probably don't love it because it takes up, in a 26-day game, they probably just don't have the time for a long immunity challenge like that, which is why they've gotten rid of those and made the other ones harder. But it could be worse, but I agree that I don't want to see it every season.
Yeah. Agreed. But I was happy with the outcome of this one, so
Yes.
it worked out.
Yes. So for anyone who doesn't know Motion, one hand is tied behind their backs, and then a ball drops down a chute. It spirals to the bottom. They catch it and put it back in. As time goes on, more balls are added, and then it gets harder because you don't know which one it's going to come out of. You kind of have to keep track of all the balls, and then if a single ball drops, then you're out. So Kyle ends up winning this. And he then immediately knows that he wants to bring Joe to Final Tribal with him and have Camilla and Eva make fire. So, what did you think of that decision to immediately know that he wants to bring Joe? And that surprised me, I will say. Like when he said that, I was like, Joe of all people. Like I would have thought maybe Eva, if not Camilla. Like I would have thought like that Joe would be more likely to beat Camilla if you in fire making, if you want to ensure that Camilla is on the jury here, that I would think that Joe is who you would want to go against her in fire to make sure that happens, but he decided on Joe.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised too, and also we also all thought like, oh, Joe's such a big threat. Like, why is he going with him? But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the jury didn't like his game as much as they did Kyle's. So I mean, it made sense for that, and then also it didn't give Joe another point to show like, oh, I won in fire, like I deserve to be here in the final tribal.
That's
So
true.
that also took that away from him. So I think that was smart from Kyle's perspective, just for that reason as well. But I mean, now obviously we can look back and see that it was the right decision. But like in the moment when he chose him, I was also a little bit like, well, why? Like you could have taken Eva easily here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That Joe that would have given Joe more, clout for the jury vote. To have said that he, had this big moment of fire making right before. I think we see that in certain seasons that means more than others. But I just think that. it depends on how badly he like how important that is to him that Camilla ends up on the jury. Like if it's something that's like, well, I would like it, but if not, I still think that I have a pretty much just as good of a chance of winning, then sure, bring Joe, pick Camilla and Eva and fire. But I think if that was like game breaking for him to want Camilla on that jury, then he probably would have a better bet that happening if you put Joe against her. I would think, as a
Yeah.
fireman. But but he it works out for him still. Camilla and Eva are in fire together. Camilla has a huge trouble getting a spark going there. It's tough to see, sad to see for her, but it was really nice to see her supporting Eva when she was getting frustrated because she made a fire, but it wasn't hitting the rope, and then it went down, and then he went back up again, and it was kind of this roller coaster of emotions for Eva. And and we saw this while she was practicing too, that she really has an episode. And Joe comforts her, of course, and he offers to go in for her, but she refuses to do that. And while she's in the fire making challenge, also has a little bit of stress there and some emotion. And Camilla, even her opponent, is supporting her, which was a nice moment. But she Eva does end up winning and sending Camilla to the jury. So this makes Kyle, Joe, and Eva the final three.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised that Joe had offered. I mean, I wasn't totally surprised because that's like such like a dad move for Joe to do, like asking if she wants to not do the fire anymore and have him do it instead. But obviously, Eva wanted to prove to herself that she could do it, and she did. So I was happy for Eva that she ended up winning, but also sad that Camilla lost here. But it worked out because obviously it was good for Kyle's game to have Camilla on the jury. So that was really good for this whole situation here.
Yes, for sure. So we then get to final tribal, and I would say it wasn't the most exciting final tribal, but there were some good moments. Were there any highlights that specifically from final tribal that stood out to you?
I feel like when we were hearing about the Shaheen vote, and at first when Eva was sharing how it was her move, and then we just saw over pan to Camilla being like, "No, I got you," to
Hmm.
Kyle because obviously we're here like, "Oh my gosh, like what? Like this isn't what actually happened." So it was good that they were showing that. Because at first I was like, "When is Kyle gonna speak? Like we need to hear
I
his side
know.
of this." But obviously then Camilla asked, "Well, what's your side of that Shaheen
Yeah.
vote?" And that was the perfect question. But yeah, so just seeing that and then Shaheen's reaction to that was just amazing.
Yeah, and Eva's reaction to that was
Yeah.
pretty amazing too, I thought, where she was just like, whoa, wait, there's a lot I don't know here, I guess, type of thing. Because that was also, if I'm not mistaken, the same moment where they found out that Kyle and Camilla had this close relationship all
Yeah.
season long. So I think it was just a lot of information for Eva and Joe specifically to handle all in one moment. But it seemed like yeah, everyone was pretty surprised by that. I just loved how easily impressed Chrissy was. All final tribal, like everything that was revealed, Chrissy was like, like she just had this like look on her face, like oh my gosh, like I am learning all this new information. But my favorite line of I mean Chrissy is just incredible on this. Was when Eva was like, "Well, I have a surprise for you," and she was like, or she was like asking, "What do you think I do?" or something. Chrissy was like, "You're not a student that plays hockey with boys." Like I don't know why that line just was so just
That
I
was a
can't
good
stop. It's
moment.
been 3 days and I still cannot stop thinking. Or no, it's been how long? 4 days, and I still can't stop thinking about that moment. That line
Yeah,
was just incredible.
that was good.
But
Chrissy did show up for this final tribal.
yeah, yeah, and David's knock knock joke was another kind of fun moment where he was, pretending to be angry, all tribal, and then it comes out with that moment, and he's like, I was just playing. So that was fun. David has his moments, I will say. The standing and the knock knock joke are. I think David is better as a juror than he was as a survivor castaway.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway from this. I would say I agree with that.
Yes. Well, in the end, Kyle ends up winning, and they vote a 5 to 2 to 1. Eva gets 2 votes, which kind of surprised me. I will say, when she got her second vote, I was like, because she had I will say, Eva had a very good final tribal. I think overall, I think she did a good job of explaining her game and making the jury feel like she worked to get there and had she had some rabbits to pull out of her hat with the safety without power that some people didn't know about. I didn't realize. I kind of figured that everyone knew about the safety without power for some reason because I think her alliance knew, and so I think I just figured that kind of that word got around camp of her having that. But it did seem like there were multiple people on the jury surprised by that. So I guess she was able to keep that a secret to a certain degree, and so I think that that was a good kind of surprise that she was able to drop on them then, and she got 2 votes out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, you also texted me this, that the fact that Eva was in the middle, you were a little bit scared because you're like, well, the middle
Hmm.
seat is usually the winner. So it made us maybe believe that, oh, are people going to be swaying more to Eva? So then seeing that she got 2 votes, I was like, whoa, like, what's going to happen here? But then obviously Kyle then swept the rest of them. But I feel like, yeah, she did have a really good tribal. I think Joe just really didn't try as much as he could have here.
Yeah.
And that's why he didn't really get any votes. He got one. So Cedric voted for Joe, which was interesting. But I feel like Kyle definitely was a deserving winner here. So I was happy to see that. And it was a satisfying ending for me.
Yes, it was. For you, it was satisfying. No, I think it
Yeah.
was satisfying for me as well, for different reasons. But no, yeah, I think that Kyle is was definitely the most deserving winner of the season for sure. I think that he was able to read the jury in a way that we as viewers were not, clearly. And I think a lot of people out there were able to read the fact that the jury was not impressed with Joe and Eva's game. And the fact that, Camilla was saying this in some of her exit press here, where she was like, yeah, when I was talking, the jury was eating it up. You could tell at tribals. And when Eva and Joe was talking, like they were stone faced, like they were not reacting. And it was very clear that they were not impressed by their games. They didn't respect their games, and they respected Camilla and Kyle. And so I think that they were all much more willing, or some of them were much more willing to vote for, especially Camilla, I think. I think that if Camilla had been there, it seems like just from kind of what the jurors and the finalists have said, that I think they were all really, really supportive of Camilla's game. Some of them didn't realize everything that Kyle was doing. I think that I was watching a TikTok that Mary posted, where because people were wondering like, why did you vote for Eva? And she was like, I really didn't want to vote for any of them. Like she was like, I wanted to vote for Camilla. And she said like watching it back, she understands so much more everything that Kyle did. But like to her, it was so frustrating because she kept wanting Kyle to make a move, make a move, make a move, and he just kept refusing to do it. And watching it back, she's like, "Well, now I get it. It makes sense. Like he's doing all this stuff that we're not aware of, and he's has a closer relationship to Camilla and all these people." So I think that for the jurors, like they just were able to kind of see Camilla's game as being like playing from the bottom and being scrappy and making all these moves, but they didn't understand that Kyle was doing the same thing with her. So like she was like, well, I just I was impressed by Evan's answers and gave her the vote.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I feel like now also like when we see at the after show of Camilla, the star saying how Camilla would have been unanimous vote, like that was surprising, which we already kind of discussed as well. Which now hearing that from Mary, like okay, yeah, people did see that more so from Camilla than they did from Kyle, but it would have been interesting to see them both there and what would have happened then.
Yeah, I think I almost want to watch the season back with the lens of thinking like that Eva and Joe are kind of like the goats that they're bringing to the end rather than these huge threats that nobody's
Yeah.
taking out for some inexplicable reason. Like, I actually think that watching the season back, knowing the ending in this case, will make the season better. Whereas I think for most seasons, knowing the ending makes it less exciting. But I actually think in this case, I almost feel like we were told, I don't even want to say we were told like a fake story of what was happening. I just think that we didn't have all the context that we needed in order to make people's moves or lack of moves make sense. So I'd
Yeah.
be interested to watch some of it back eventually and have a different lens.
Yeah. For sure. I think I definitely now I want to also see it back and watch it through, and now knowing how it ends and having Kyle as the winner here, which was exciting and a good ending to the season.
Yes. Well, we are now going to close the chapter on Survivor 48, another season in the books. We got a little preview for season 49, of course, at the very end here, and we're getting some news about 50 very soon, so lots to look forward to in the Survivor world. But for now, we will close that book and let's move on to a show with much colder weather, but potentially a lot more drama than we got on 48 at least. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the first half of season 2. So, Molly, take it away.
Yes, so I am so excited to be talking about this. I feel like it's been just talked about by so many people. I was actually talking about it yesterday when I was out at the pool with some friends. Everyone just seems to be locked in to this season. And I actually only watched the first five so far, so I could preview what my thoughts are, what could happen the rest of the season. So that's also why we're having a discussion of just the first half, so that I can guess of what I think is going to happen. Even though Michael, you have seen it all already,
I
so
have no self-control,
yeah.
so I watched all of it in like 2 days, of course.
I mean, I would have if I had more time. I feel like to watch them all, but now I'm glad that I can now watch the rest after we record this episode because now I don't have the self control after I
And
started
I
it.
have all the time in the world, so
Yeah, now I'm like, well, I can make time to watch this show. I'll stay up till 2 a.m. It's fine.
yeah,
Uh,
it's so good. I couldn't help myself. It's so good.
Yes. Well, overall, for the first half of this season, I feel like it's just delivering on all cylinders here. We get all the drama. There's real life drama. Like it's not like things that are fabricated here. Like everything is real, and it's kind of sad some points part of it, but like also it's nice to see that they're like not trying to hide things from the viewers, from us. Like it's like, well, like they're really delivering and giving us the tea. Like this is great to see and great TV, of course.
Yeah, I think what I really appreciate about this show is that I think they are not falling for the same traps that other shows have fallen for. So I think like Vanderpump Rules in the early seasons, the show really resisted embracing the fact that they are now famous.
Hmm.
And so it was like, oh, these people in, season 6 of Vanderpump Rules are still pretending to work at Sir. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. They are rich and famous now. They don't need to be waiting tables at a restaurant. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But the show refused to embrace that and allow the show to evolve along with their cast. And so many of those storylines for so many years felt so fake and forced, whereas there was so much real life stuff going on with them that they could have really focused on, and instead they were creating these fake stories of like this drama that was happening at Sir, where it's like they're not even working there anymore. So it was just like it didn't make any sense. Whereas I think Secret Lives of Mormon Wives isn't doing that same thing. They are fully breaking the fourth wall down. They are willing to focus on what is actually happening in their lives and the true drama that they are going through because of the fame that they are experiencing. Like, I mean, we'll get into it, but like with Miranda coming in, it's like we don't trust her because she just wanted to join the show now that the show is popping off. And, we're all killing it. Now she wants to come back into the group. And it's like, yes, I appreciate the fact that they're willing to say that and allow them to say that and not just create some backhanded way of like, well, we don't trust her because, like whatever excuse they would come up with why they maybe didn't trust her. Whereas, no, it's just like, yeah, she wants to join the show now. And we don't trust anyone that's clout chasing that wants to come into the group at this point now that the show's taken off. So it's
Yeah.
like, I appreciate that they're like, yes, say whatever you're really feeling, go behind the scenes. We'll see that a lot more in the second half, no spoilers. But yeah, I mean, even in this first half, we see it multiple times where they're just willing to fully like break down that fourth wall and explain what's really going on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's also fun to see them filming their TikToks, which we know is like
Hmm.
obviously like they're also main part of their jobs now. It's like I mean they already were part of Mom Talk and doing all this stuff before they got famous from the show. But it's interesting to see that like also being brought up, like when we see later in this or in the part we can talk about it later, but like the Whitney videos of like Michaela talking about Whitney, and I remember seeing them and like seeing that
Yeah.
discourse of like, oh my gosh, what's happening with Whitney and Mom Talk? Like, we obviously knew there was drama there with the last season and like all this stuff that happened with Whitney there, and so it was like, well, what's going to happen this season? And it's just interesting to see them bring that up into the episodes too, which is fun because obviously we're seeing them like they're coming on TikTok, so those are videos that we're getting to see as well.
Hmm.
But hearing the behind the scenes of that was interesting. So, on that note, let's get into more of what we've seen so far in these first 5 episodes. So, for the first episode, we see the season begins with a group attending the Gracie Lou Western themed influencer event. So, it's also cool to see them like actually at these influencer events because like they're getting invited to these.
Hmm.
And Whitney shows up and reunites with them after leaving on talk and unfollowing and blocking everyone. So, overall, I feel like Whitney is just like now she was pregnant and had a baby. Like I feel like she wasn't as involved as like we had seen last season so far overall, and for the first half I've seen this season. But do you think that in this situation here in the beginning that Whitney handled the situation well, and would you forgive her?
I think that she handled it as well as she could in terms of still being on the show after obviously like seemingly not really being involved in the group or talking to anyone much since season one filmed and aired. So I think that there's no easy or natural way to then be like, "Hi, I'm still on the show and need to, be interacting with you guys, even though you don't like me and I don't really like you." So yeah, I mean, she didn't come in and seem to stir up too much drama there, or also I don't think that she was too fake. I think that she pretty much like was just like, "Hey, I'm here." So yeah, I think she handled it pretty well, given the situation. But yeah, I mean, would I be willing to forgive her? I think that there's a level of that of where it's like, yeah, sure, like you can be I don't think that Whitney did or said anything that was unforgivable in season one. Like I think that she obviously didn't handle certain things well. She seemed to play the victim a lot, but okay, like it's been a long time since then. I think there was about probably a year between filming. So I think sure, come back in, I will keep it in a little bit of a distance at first, at least, see what, I'm not gonna just fully, immediately welcome her back in to be best friends like we once were, maybe, but I think that you can kind of wait and see what happens.
Yeah, agreed. She wasn't trying to stir up anything here. She was trying to be like, "Hey guys, like what's going on?" And so I think that at least like trying to be more mellow here is helping out for her favor.
Yeah.
And also, we see Miranda shows up here, and so this is our introduction to Miranda. She is Taylor's ex best friend and an OG Mom Talk member who was involved in the swinging scandal. So I'm glad we're also hearing more about this now because we didn't get a ton of that in season one, and then we know
Hmm.
that happened. And Miranda also was originally denying that it happened. So Taylor didn't like that because Taylor was the one saying, everything that was going on, and Miranda was like, no, that didn't happen, so that caused their downfall, or they're more just like, we can't be friends anymore kind of thing. But I feel like they've both matured since then. At least like we've seen conversations with Miranda and Taylor now. But in general, I feel like Miranda, I think, is a good addition to the group, and I think she adds a level of like, well, like yes, she is part of it. And it's interesting also how you were mentioning that they're talking about, well, do we trust her? Like, is she just wanting this fame? But I like seeing her part of the group now because she kind of gives more of the sounding board for people who like maybe are on the outs, which is good to see because now it's like, well, we can hear more people's stories because Miranda is like kind of the easy one to go to and like not causing as much drama here with people right now. So it's good to see that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Miranda. I think that she is. I'm glad that she's here because, like you said, we didn't get a ton of talk about the swinging scandal in season one because Taylor was the only one involved in it in any way. So it was like she didn't want to like tell other people's stories for
Mhm.
them because they weren't there to tell their side, and she didn't want to really get in too deep with all that. But now that Miranda is there, they're able to really delve into that a lot deeper and really talk through it. And we're getting to hear a lot more details of it, hear Miranda's side of the story. And I think because that's really like when people were introduced to the show in season one, it was through the swinging scandal, and everyone wanted to hear what happened. And we didn't get as much of talk of that as I think people had hoped. And so I think now it's like, okay, we can really like delve into this topic that everyone was really coming to season one for, and now in season two we're really getting to hear more about it. So I like that Miranda's here so that we can really delve into that.
Yes, agreed. And so Miranda tells the girls that the extent of her involvement was playing spin the bottle and just kissing other men. So with that, do you believe that's what happened?
um I don't know. I think that I tend to believe Taylor in this because why would she lie? Like I don't
Yeah.
think she has anything to gain from lying. I don't even know that it's necessarily a lie. Like I think that there probably is truth to that, but I think like it's more of like a okay, what is your definition of like swinging? And what is your definition of like, different things? I feel like there's a lot of technicalities here that we're kind of delving into. So I think it's like pushing the boundaries of spin the bottle and pushing the boundaries of like just kissing. It's like, okay, we were kissing, but like what was the situation here? Like, so I think like there's probably some sort of like it's somewhere in between maybe like what Taylor and Miranda's versions of it. So I don't think that it's like Miranda intentionally lying, but I think it's a little bit of downplaying.
Yeah, I agree as well. And I think because she wasn't sure what she wanted to share, probably, or just like also being Mormon or from the Church of Latter day Saints, that's more just like frowned upon to talk about some of that stuff that she did. So I think she just has that internal struggle as well and like what she wants to share.
Hmm.
But which
Yeah.
also we didn't even mention that part. I feel like that's another big thing in what's happening in all the dramas, like because of how they were brought up and like growing up in the church and all that, like
Hmm.
puts such a stigma onto the things that they're like living in now, or like overall just sex conversations and all this kind of stuff that also like if we were to watch any other kind of group of people, like we wouldn't get this much drama out of it because it's like they have so much of their like childhood traumas that they're going through too, of like experiencing things that like they had to suppress emotions and like all that kind of stuff in like maybe not all of them but like generally speaking like of what we're seeing from these women at least, that they're all having like now like looking back into like how they grew up and like resentment in some ways of like what they were restricted from.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes these Salt Lake City shows, like, this and Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, so interesting because it's this whole different world that I think most of us were pretty unfamiliar with before these shows came out. And so I think that, yeah, that it's very true that something like that is it has so many more layers than it would for most other people. I can see why Miranda would be very hesitant at first to be willing to admit to that, knowing that there could be a lot of ramifications there.
Yeah, for sure. So now moving on to Jen and Zach. Well, we've seen a lot from them so far in this first half, but we obviously like we knew that they were separated and they went through a rough patch after everything that happened last season. And then now Zach is trying to get back with Jen, and but she's trying to put herself first and isn't sure what she's trying to do here. But they decide that he is going to move back in with her and they're going to try to make things work. So, what did you think about this, and what would you do if you were in Jen's position?
Yeah, this is so hard. I'm glad that Jen seemingly really did try to make some changes in their relationship after last season, because I think a lot of us were worried that like is she just gonna forgive him immediately and move on? Like, is she trying to make it seem like she's standing up for herself and doing all this, but behind closed doors, like they're totally fine and they're gonna just forgive she's gonna forgive him and it's all gonna just be forgotten about. But it really did seem like that, they were not speaking for a while. They were separated. She was trying to see what she wanted to do. But it does seem like in this moment at least that yeah, like Zach is trying to win her back, and that she's pretty willing to eventually be like, okay, you can move back in. Like, we see them go get ketamine treatments, and they, have some hard conversations on camera, which is very respectable that they're willing to do all this on camera. And yeah, at least at this point, she seems to be willing to try to make it work.
I know, yeah, it was interesting to see them do that ketamine therapy there, which I was like, wow, I'm surprised that they can air this. I guess it's Hulu, so it's fine.
We saw them
But
talk about it last season, but I don't think we actually saw anyone do it, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, but I guess that's accepted to do. They can't do they can have
Yeah, who
alcohol
knows?
or weed. They can have ketamine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting to see that, and obviously it's a complicated situation for them, and there's more to get into, which we can get into a little bit later. But next up, we have that Taylor goes to Macy's house to meet with Jenna, the girl who Dakota allegedly hooked up with while they were together. And here Jenna gives Taylor her phone and she can see all the messages and compare notes. So that was some tea. I was like, wow, she's reading all the texts. But Taylor realizes here that Dakota had lied to her on several occasions, and she gets emotional, and then she goes back to Dakota to talk about it, and Dakota admits to lying, but it wasn't really a real apology. I felt like it just was like, oh, okay, like yeah, I did some wrong things here. Um, but I don't know. I feel like here just made me hate Dakota. Like I wanted to support Taylor and Dakota, but then seeing these texts from Jenna, like those obviously are not lies. Like these are text messages that Dakota was sending to Jenna while he was still with Taylor.
Yeah.
And that's cheating. Like that's just not okay. So I felt really bad for Taylor here. They also have a son together now, and it's just a whole situation. He's really young, like probably a year at this point. I don't know how old he is.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Let me think,
Yeah,
because she was pregnant during season one,
yeah.
right? So, yeah, probably a little under a year.
Yeah. So it's still like he's still a baby, and it's just hard for Taylor to go through all this with a newborn, not newborn anymore, but still a baby. And having to handle like that's still her son's father.
Mm-hmm.
But also I hate this person at the same time, you know, in this moment at least, like she's like going through all of those emotions. So I felt for her.
Yeah, no, for sure. Me too. I respect the fact that Dakota is willing to admit to lying and not just gaslight Taylor. But I don't know that he even had the ability to do that once she saw the texts herself. So like would he have tried to gaslight and make her seem like she's crazy if she hadn't seen, or if she had just seen like screenshots of the text, then would Dakota say like, "Oh, they were altered," but like because she had her phone, like he couldn't even say that. So I don't know what he would have been willing to admit to otherwise, but I think that Taylor handled this as well as she possibly could, though.
Yeah, agreed. Well, next up we see Miranda invites the girls over for happy hour. So at first they're skeptical about going and the timing and just overall because they think that she's only wanting to get back. And now because of the show being famous and successful, so obviously we are seeing kind of breaking down the fourth wall here. But Miranda says that she was hesitant before because she was working on her marriage and now she's divorced. So that's her reasoning to why it's working now for her to be part of the show, which I feel like I believe that. I'm like, yeah, like she was going through it, but obviously we also saw other people going through it too. But I think it makes sense that she wants to be part of it now, and she is still friends with them. So I think it makes sense for it, even though the timing is a bit suspicious.
Yeah, I think there's probably both of those things are true. Like two
Yeah.
things can be true at once. Like I think sure she didn't want to go through all of her divorce and, her marriage struggles on camera, but I think she also probably, if she knew that it was the show was as successful as it was at that time, she may have been more willing to go through all of that on camera if she knew that the show was going to be successful. And I think that because she wasn't even sure, like, is the show even going to, like, hit? Is it going to land? Then, like, she didn't want to also ruin her marriage for a show that was not going to be even a successful show that lasted more than one season. Whereas now, at least, like, she's like, okay, I would be willing to go through all of this. Like now I'm willing to talk about all this that I maybe am a little uncomfortable with, but at least I know that the show is big and I'm going to get something out of this. So I do think that both things are probably true to a certain extent, but I don't blame Miranda for not coming on season 1, and it doesn't make me like look at her sideways really, because I think all of them want to be on a successful show, and like, I don't think that any of them went on this for any other reasons than Miranda is now. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just they were being kind of petty about it, probably, and
Yeah.
they wanted to say what they wanted to say in that moment.
Yeah, and I don't think that any of them treated Miranda badly, like coming
Yeah,
in. Like it didn't seem like they were mean girls towards her. So, you know, yeah, I don't blame either side there. I think there's truth on both sides.
yeah, agreed. And we also get to hear that Taylor says that Chase, who's Miranda's ex husband, told Taylor that he had feelings for her after Taylor told him about a sex dream that she had. And Taylor not immediately telling Miranda about this was a big part of their fallout from their friendship. So that was interesting to hear about, is because now we're hearing, like, oh, their swinging scandal like really did mess up their marriages, um which we know now both of them are divorced from their ex-husbands. But hearing that, like, it was interesting just to hear a little bit more into that, the context of that. But do you think that Taylor and Miranda will be able to mend their friendship?
I do. I do. I think that maybe they won't be quite as close as they once were, but it even seems like now that they're very close. Like they're
Yeah.
doing TikToks together. And they seem to be on good terms now. So I do think that as the seasons go on, like as long as nothing major happens that makes them have like a huge falling out, I think that I could absolutely see them getting back to having a pretty good friendship, and it seems like both of them. I think it seems like can understand now that a lot of it was a misunderstanding, and that like they can both see each other's sides now of why each of them were hurt, and I think that they both seem to be wanting a friendship back and willing to make the effort to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I can see them mending their friendship. I think they've both matured and changed a lot since that happened. So I'm happy to see
Yeah.
them move on. more from that.
Yeah, and they're in a very similar place in life right now. Like I think,
Yeah.
Miranda's divorced, Taylor's obviously going through very tough times with Dakota. They can both relate to what each other is going through, and so I think that helps as well.
Yeah, definitely. And well, no shortage of drama here. Here's more more to get into with now with Demi and Jesse when they're meeting up with Zach. And we're hearing now that he admits to overreacting about Chippendales, but says that he did not gamble away his medical school tuition, which Jen had said to the girls supposedly that they heard her say that, but that now they start to question how truthful Jen really is because Zach says that he did not do that. But I don't know. I think Jen just he said something or some way like the words were twisted in her mind that she said that maybe to the girls, and then like I feel like they're Demi and Jesse are just really grasping on like one set of information and then like making it seem it's the biggest deal ever, and then saying, "Oh, Jen is lying," and then it's like, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
is she lying? Like, I don't think she's lying here. I think this is what she heard, or generally like of what was discussed in some regard." But I don't think she's intentionally trying to make Zach look bad here. But what were your thoughts?
So this is where I have to be careful because the second half of the episodes changed my opinion a little bit on this.
Okay.
So I won't fully spoil anything, say what I really feel about this, but I do think that Jen I think that she said things probably in season 1 that she regrets because she didn't think that they were going to be made into such a big deal. Like I think she probably like said things just kind of out of anger towards Zach or like that she just didn't think were going to be like taken as literally as they were. Like I think that she probably like said, yeah, he gambled away his medical school tuition, like just like in an effort to say like that he has a gambling problem
Mhm.
and didn't actually literally mean that he like gambled away all of his medical school tuition. So, I think that she probably wasn't intentionally trying to lie or make him look bad, but I think that she just kind of like said it as a bit of a throwaway comment that, a year later ends up being still talked about now. So, I just don't think that Jen is someone who's like super malicious. I just don't feel that way about her.
Yeah.
But I also think that she does probably like I could see how like the other girls would think that she kind of like tries to make everything look perfect when in reality it's not. But I think that it's more of like a self-defense mechanism than anything malicious.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like she's just been going through it a lot with Zach now. So it's obviously not great to bring up all this stuff now. Or it's like when she's hearing about it now, it's like, well, why are you still caring about this? Like, this happened so long ago. But Jen and Zach do meet up together with Demi and Jesse, and Jen's upset because she feels like they're trying to make up that she only talks negatively about Zach, and then she tends to bring up what happened at Vanderpump Villa. So throwback or bringing in another show in the Hulu universe. With Lisa Vanderpump, her Vanderpump Villa show between Demi and Marciano, which this is our first mention of like this maybe the scandal whatever happened in in Vanderpump Villa,
Yeah.
which was interesting to hear. Like, okay, like what went down in Vanderpump Villa, which I know obviously we're gonna get more into probably in the second half of this season.
Yes.
But for this part, we got like a little teaser. But I don't know. It's interesting just to hear them discussing another show also in their show, which is fun.
Yeah, so I have not watched all of season 2 of Vanderpump Villa, but I did watch the Mormon Wives episodes. It was towards the very beginning of the season. And yeah, I will say like you don't need to watch those episodes to like they don't give you any more information. Like none of these scandals really like come up there other than you just see Demi and Marciano like talking a bit and maybe, like that looks a little suspicious once you see what happens, in this show. But if you were just watching it by itself, like you wouldn't know of any sort of scandal that was happening. But no, it does feel like it's going to be talked about a lot more later. I will say, like, as of right now, I don't necessarily think that anything. I don't think that Demi was like coming on to Marciano or flirting too much with him. Like, I don't. I think that it's a matter of like, did Marciano do anything that
Yeah.
was really inappropriate towards Demi? I think is mostly the question here of like, how far did that go and how much uh what was Marciano out of line?
Yeah. I agree. And I think, I mean, to me, we also see, I feel like she's kind of getting a little bit of a villain edit in this season of like her just bringing up all this stuff with Jen, but then having issues of her own and her marriage we hear about at the end of this part of this half of of the first half of the season. And I feel like with that, it's like, well, what's really true? Like, what is Demi hiding? And like, what's actually going down? Is she just putting up this front and trying to bring up the drama not related to her so that it gets away from her, which was interesting to hear about also. But so I don't think she did anything wrong here at Vanderpump Villa. I think it's more just what people are suspecting happened and like what they want to project onto the situation.
Yes. More to come with Demi's villain edit for sure.
Oh, do you think
Uh,
she looks like a villain?
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll put a pin in this for now because I think there will be a lot more to talk about after the second half of the episodes with
For
Vanderpump
sure.
Villa.
Yes, good little preview for what I have in my mind of what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But next up, we see Taylor and Dakota have lunch with Taylor's family, and this was a crazy lunch. But the family seems to primarily think that Taylor is overreacting to the Jenna situation, and that they were very early on in their relationship at the time, and they think that Taylor should give Dakota the benefit of the doubt and try to move on with him because he is the father of her kid, their son together, and they were just shaming Taylor. Like her dad at least was like, "Well, you knew this was happening, like, but Taylor didn't know the extent of what was happening." And so I just felt bad for Taylor in this moment of like having her no not having support here from even her family. Like they're on Dakota's side, which was wild. Like, I was like, what? Like what is going on?
Wild. This made me so angry. Like, I don't think I have been this angry watching a television show in a long time. As when Taylor's dad, in particular, was just like, well, what does that say about you that you were willing to sleep with him twice after? Like, oh my God, like this is your daughter. Like, oh
Hmm.
my God, if I can't even imagine someone's like speaking to their daughter like that. It was just really gross. And I don't know. It seems like even on social media when people have been like clapping back at him like about this, he's been responding in kind of gross ways. Like, I don't know. He does not seem like I don't like to judge anyone too harshly off of an edit on these shows, but from what I have seen, I do not love Taylor's father.
Yeah, he's just very, very set in his ways, it seems like, and more just not. I don't know. It's just it's hard to watch that. I'm glad he's not on the season very long because I'm like, well, this one
Yeah.
clip was enough. We don't need to see him more.
Yeah, and Taylor's
Be-
sister seemed to be a good one.
yeah,
She was standing up for Taylor. She was saying maybe you guys need to go your separate ways. This seems toxic. Like I appreciated her having her sister being there, at
yeah.
least, because no one else seemed to be really standing up for her at all.
Yeah, no, her sister was the one person who was there of like,
Yeah.
okay, like this is what you should be doing, whether Taylor takes her or not, but that was her advice. But next up we see Jesse invites Chase and his girlfriend as well as Miranda to her Halloween party. So this Halloween party was a lot going on here. Which we knew going into it that we were gonna see this Chippendales reenactment essentially with Jen, but I did not expect there to be so much drama when Chase and his now girlfriend and Miranda and Taylor and Dakota all are there. So very messy situation.
Messy,
Uh,
messy, messy. Messy Jesse.
yes, yes, Jesse did want the mess. It seems like. But she goes up to them. Oh, Chase and Dakota start talking, which makes Taylor upset. So then she goes up to them and gets into an argument with Chase because Dakota was obviously just like, or you can see when Dakota and Chase are talking, Chase is pointing to Taylor. And so it's obvious that they're talking about her. And then she brings up just like what they were asking or what they're talking about and overall what they were saying, and he denies telling her at the gym that he had feelings for her, but then also says he only said he had a sex dream with her, or that's the only thing he had said was not that he had feelings, just that he had a sex
Hmm.
dream
Yeah.
about her. But then she also feels betrayed by Dakota, who she feels isn't standing up for her because at this point, like, I guess Taylor and Dakota are together. Like, it was kind of unclear of like what their situation was in this moment. But
Yeah.
overall, like, you would think who you are closer with in that moment, like he would have stood up for her over like talking with Chase. But
Yeah.
it seemed that Dakota was trying to be buddy buddy with Chase in this moment, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was just a lot of the past coming up here, and I think at first I was like, oh, let me like try to listen to this conversation and like think of it and like, oh, this is good for them to move on. But then when Taylor started coming in, I was like, never mind, this is not good for them to talk about. But I
Yeah.
think overall, obviously, I'm more on Team Taylor here. I'm always going to be Team Taylor, but I think, I mean, even she has stuff to go through, but she always means well. And I think that I felt bad that for the Chase being there and like her just having to feel that kind of feeling. Like I felt bad that she felt that way she did because that's not a good feeling of not having the support from her, maybe boyfriend Dakota, at least baby daddy, and then being called out from this ex fling ish person who like you never really wanted to be with, but like was saying they had feelings for you, and then not admitting to that. But what are your thoughts over here overall on like the Taylor Chase of it all?
Yeah, I think at this point Taylor and Dakota, I don't think they were together, but I still do think that like that's her son's father, and she wants him to be standing up for her and to have her back, and especially because like I think at that point she was still trying to like decide what she wanted to do in terms of moving on with him or not, and so this was kind of like a one more tally on the do not stay together. I think you could kind of tell that Chase was lying in that moment. But I don't even know why he would lie. Like, it's not like he's with Miranda anymore. And, like, I don't know, he wasn't with his current girlfriend at that time when he and Taylor had that conversation at the gym. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
what does that impact him if people think that he did say that? But I believe Taylor in that instance, and I'm glad that she went over there and stuck up for herself because it was obvious that they were talking about her.
Obviously, later on, we see Taylor saying she doesn't want to continue with Dakota. So in this moment, like if he had stood up for her, maybe things would have changed. But
For
I don't
sure. I think yeah, I think that that this could have been a really good opportunity for to Dakota to prove himself and show Taylor that he is willing to stand up for her, willing to, not allow other guys to talk about her in that way and that if she doesn't like someone, then he's not going to buddy up to them either.
know. Yeah, I know. So not he's not showing up how he should be.
Yeah.
But also then as Chase is walking out of the party, he touches to me, like pokes her and says, "Where's your husband?" And then she goes up to tell Brett Chase put his hands on her, and that sent Brent storming out to confront Chase and runs out to the front yard, and there's a whole confrontation there, which was interesting to see. Also, no one had seen Brett yet in his Chippendales outfit, and he comes out like no shirt on. And I don't know. I feel like To me, obviously, it was right to feel upset of Chase poking her there, but I think she maybe overreacted a bit into the situation with this. But what were your thoughts on the Chase and the me?
Yeah, I mean, look, Chase should not have touched her. I do not support that in any way. But I do think that her saying to Brett that Chase put his hands on her, of course, is going to make Brett think something completely different than what actually happened.
Yeah.
And so I can understand in that case Brett storming out, looking for him, thinking like, "Oh my God, he must have like pushed her or." Like grabbed her or something like that that is much more aggressive than what actually happened. And so was Chase wrong for doing that? Absolutely. But to me should have been a lot more clear to Brett. You know, it really makes me feel like to me purposely worded that in a way that she wanted Brett to do that. And I think if Brett had actually known or seen what had actually happened, I think that he would have come at Chase with a different energy.
Yeah, I think so too. And then obviously, then we see the cops were called on them for the noise complaint, which was interesting to see that go
I
down.
love Jesse being like, "Hey, do you watch Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?" Asking the
That was
cop.
great. Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
was so funny. And they're like, "No, what's that?" Well, it's just
yeah,
like, "Well, everything is intertwined here."
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so I mean, I didn't expect to see that much drama before we even saw the Chippendales of it all. But then we do get back to seeing that the Chippendales redo with having Brett and Jordan, and as well as another performer dancing for Jen, and they do this in front of Zach as well because Zach's right there, so he's watching the whole thing, and he looks slightly uncomfortable, but doesn't say anything. So Jen's just there, kind of like trying to like sink into the chair. It seems at some points, but I don't know. It seemed like she didn't hate it, and but except knowing that she knew Zach was gonna hate it, made her maybe like think otherwise.
yeah.
What did you think of how Zach handled it in this moment?
Yeah, I think at the moment, I think Zach handled it very well. Very, like, he was good. Just no, don't say anything. Let Jen have her fun. Don't ruin the moment. I thought he handled it well. Then the next day, we find out that Zach was very upset. Then that night, when they got home, and really seemed to take a lot of his anger out on Jen. And so I think that's not good. I do not think that he should have taken his anger out on Jen because it's a matter of debate how much Jen was aware of what was going to happen and whether she agreed to it or not. But I still do think that it's not Jen's fault. Like, if anything, like, go to Jesse and to me, which he does later, but, and hash it out with them. But I don't think that taking his anger out on Jen yet again was a good sign that he's really fully like evolved and made the changes that Jen would want to see in him.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that, like hearing about how Zach was angry with her and just overall, like, well, in the moment it seemed like he was okay, and then afterwards, like bringing out all his anger there, obviously is not good. But we've seen more conversations coming up later about this as well, and it's just like overall, just I feel like he needs to get over it. Like he was dancing, like it was like
Yeah.
not it was nothing harmful in the situation, at least in my opinion. It's like obviously we're on the outside, we're not in the relationship, and like Zach has his own opinions of it, which is fine, but you don't need to bring down your wife with those opinions. Like, like at least like have a good conversation about it, but like don't harper on it forever.
Yeah.
Um, but we also then see Jen takes a pregnancy test and it turns out to be positive. So this was a really sad moment, but also it was like, wow, like sad, but is she happy? Like it was hard to tell. But at first, she definitely is sad that because she's breaking down with Zach because they're not on good terms, and she's scared and like bringing in another child into their somewhat broken of a relationship. Like they're not totally separated at this point. Like they're still living together, but they were separated. And they're still working through things. So it's a really rough moment for her just to find this out, which was a real moment too. It's like, well, you can't fake that you're pregnant here,
Yeah.
and I just felt for Jen here, and I hope. I mean, we know she's pregnant now, so like, obviously, she still has a baby, or she's about to have a baby. But overall, it was like it's crazy to see that like this was how she felt in the moment.
Yeah, that was a very real moment, and I think that you could really tell that she's wrestling with these all of these emotions of like not in a good place with Zach, is happy to have, to be pregnant, but just not right now because she just doesn't think she's ready to bring another kid into the world when things are so up in the air and she doesn't know what the future holds. And now this is just another factor like complicating things so much more. And so yeah, I really really felt for her in that moment. Like you could tell that that she was really going through it.
Yeah, I know it was a rough one to watch. But then we also see Macy has a dinner and to tell the girls about her new book deal, and then they play a game of the confessions, where they anonymously just write something they've never said before, which I feel like they play this game all the time.
Mhm. They
But
do, they do.
then Taylor reads one of them that says, I think Jen is fake. And then that makes Jen emotional because she already feels like everyone hates her and she can't go to her husband because he's also not the most supportive of her right now. So she just feels very alone. And I don't know. I felt like overall Jen's just going through it. Like I was like, don't bring her down even more. Like she's already at a low point. Like we don't need to harp on Jen too long. I mean, obviously we do more because we see more conversations than when she meets up with Jesse, but we'll talk about that in a second. But overall, do you think that Jen is fake, and why do you think someone would write that?
I mean, I think like the answer is probably yes right now, but for a very valid reason. Like she doesn't feel comfortable like sharing with the group everything going on in her relationship because she knows that they've used it against her last season. Everything that she told them about Zach is now being used to make her look bad. And so why would she share anything else with this group about what she's going through in her relationship and all her struggles? Like clearly, that this is a group that doesn't necessarily fully support her right now or have her best interests at heart. And so it's like, she feels comfortable sharing it with someone like Miranda, who, hasn't proven anything to be, to do her wrong. But, I don't know that with most of these girls, she feels that level of closeness right now.
Yeah, I agree, and it's hard for Jen just because she doesn't. I understand where she's at of like not wanting to share everything, but it is and then coming across then as that she's being fake
Yeah.
to the girls. So it makes sense, but it's also sad.
Yeah.
Um, but then also now back to Whitney. I feel like we kind of lost Whitney for a lot in this
We
season.
did.
But Whitney has a conversation with Macy where she tells her that she's upset, and Macy joins in with Michaela and others doing shady TikToks about her. But like she's Whitney's saying she expects it from other girls, but not from Whitney or not from Macy. But Macy's saying that she does the TikToks not knowing what the captions will be. So, which I get, like you can just like do a fun TikTok and then someone else puts a caption over it. You're like, oh, like I didn't know that was going to be the case.
Hmm.
So, I think that's a valid comeback here of like, well, this isn't really me. So, but do you think that Macy should stop filming the TikToks with Michaela?
I think that she should just tell Michaela basically like, look, you could do what you want in terms of doing TikToks about Whitney, but I am still trying to have some level of a friendship with Whitney. So I would appreciate like you not including me on those TikToks. Like if you know that your caption on a TikTok is going to be something shady about Whitney, don't include me in that one. And I think that's a fair line to draw to where it's like, not that she's not going to fully stop, like being friends with Michaela or doing TikToks with her, but just telling her like, look, don't include me in those.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be the smart move for them. for just to move forward and not having Whitney feel as much like she's being betrayed or whatever how
Yeah.
she feels with that. So I think that's fair. Well, next up, now back to Jen. She meets up with Jesse. So this was an emotional little coffee that they didn't, or hot chocolate, whatever they get. They didn't even drink their hot chocolate.
Yeah.
But Jen first wanted to go to Jesse to talk about the Chippendales experiment or performance and showing like just talking to her first and trying to understand better, just like have an open conversation there. And Jen says that she was only told that Brett would be giving the Chippendales performance, not that Jordan and the performer from Chippendales himself. So then Jesse says that Demi did tell her that there would be other surprises, and that Jen told her that she and Zach were even planning to go to Chippendales together for an exposure therapy. So she wouldn't have thought if this is like a big deal or like anything that was going to cause any rifts in her marriage. But like obviously it caused those issues, which is not good. But also Jesse then also brings up how Jen was lying about Zach being related to Ben Affleck and saying that she knows that like overall like she thinks that she says lies. But then Jesse's then coming back, or sorry, then Jen says a lot of J's. Jen says that she knows Jesse's past, and that says if she's asked said that if she's asking to swing with them, it's a no. So, which is the first I heard about Jesse's swinging. So I feel like this was just a big of okay, what's actually happening in this
Yeah.
meeting? Like it didn't seem like anything was solved here, and there was just a lot of yelling back and forth of what they wanted to be heard, and that we're not receptive of it, either one of them really. So it just seems that Jen and Jesse are just like, I don't know if they'll recover. At least not right now. Like they're just in different places.
Yeah, nothing was solved here, for
Yeah.
sure. I can see both sides to a certain degree. Like I do think that Jen probably was more okay with everything happening in terms of the Chippendales performance until Zach got upset about it. Like, I think that she probably, shouldn't have agreed to say to Demi and Jesse, like, yeah, I'm willing to do this, of course. Like, this is fun. Like, yeah, surprises, okay, sure, that'll be fun. Like, I think that she shouldn't have said that if she thought that there was a chance that Zach would still be upset about this if things went a little bit further than she was agreeing to, type of thing. Like, I think she should have assumed, like, okay, it's a Chippendales performance. Like, there's probably going to be, like, guys on my lap and, getting close to me and whatever. Like, maybe things went a little bit further than she thought they would, but I think that she should have, in that case, been like, okay, yes to this, but like, don't go any further than that. Like, I think that she should have drawn a line before that if she was going to be upset with it afterwards. But on the other hand, I also don't know that Demi and Jesse like should have done this at all. Like I think that this was an idea that maybe sounds fun in theory, but like you're just kind of putting them in an uncomfortable situation because either she's going to say no and seem like a prude and like she's, like a Debbie Downer, and then you maybe would have been upset that she was kind of like not okay with your plans, or then she's saying yes, but like being put in this weird situation where it's like I don't know that I'm okay with it, but I'm just saying yes because I don't want to like cause issues type of thing. Like I want to seem easygoing. So I don't know. I think that they just shouldn't have put her in this and Zach in that situation at all.
Yeah, I think it for sure is just like for to me and Jesse, they wouldn't have expected it to be as blown up as it is now. And they obviously, like, that wasn't their original intentions. And now that they see that as how they're reacting, they obviously are not happy to see that is happening with Jen and Zach. But now they're not understanding why either because they're like, well, Jen knew the information. Like, why didn't she share it? And like bringing it back to Jen being like, oh, well, she was lying. And like now, like, blaming Jen, which I don't like that
Yeah.
for the situation here. It's like, well, Jen didn't do anything wrong necessarily. Like, it's just that she didn't know how her husband was going to react to it. so she was trying to be easygoing. I think is like what I think she had like an ITM or whatever they call them in um
Confessional.
confessionals. Yeah, so she had like a moment where she's like, well, maybe I was just like saying it just to be easygoing and like want to be agreeable and all that stuff. And like looking back on it, she's like, maybe I shouldn't have said that,
Yeah.
but she wanted to in that moment like seem like a fun girl of and like do something fun like that. So it was just like a tricky scenario there. Nothing's getting solved. Also, I don't know when she's gonna announce that she's pregnant, but I want her to because I feel like this is also causing her strain and like feeling like more stressed out in certain ways that I'm like, well, maybe people would be easier on her if she just says that she's pregnant, which I don't know if that's true or
Hmm.
not. But in my opinion, I'm like, oh, maybe she just needs to tell them because she needs less stress right now. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Overall, I
Yeah.
feel
No,
bad.
it's a tough situation. Yeah.
Yeah. But so we still see some more drama, obviously, now with Whitney and Michaela. So bring back stuff that happened more from season one here, which Macy was surprising Michaela that she planned a meeting between her and Whitney so that she couldn't get out of it. Whitney says that she's hurt that Michaela continues to make TikToks about her, and which we kind of had mentioned earlier in this episode as well. But Michaela said that she and Whitney aren't friends, so she can do whatever she wants, and that Whitney can ignore them. And they're more just for fun and not necessarily to be like attacking her all the time. And it's just Whitney taking them personally, is what Michaela says. So I don't know. I feel like here, just like petty internet drama kind of thing. It's just like, well, if this is just happening, like if you guys aren't friends, like you don't have to be close friends, but at least like respect each other. But because you're still in the same group, and there, she still says like she'll be around her, but she's not gonna want to talk to her. Like Whitney is fine to talk to Michaela also, but it's like there's also not going to be friends kind of thing. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, Michaela's drawn a line here,
Yeah.
obviously. Like, she's doesn't seem to be at all willing or wanting a friendship with Whitney. And I mean, I feel bad for Whitney here because I think that look, like Michaela is absolutely like using this for clicks and likes, and she knows that Whitney was the villain of season one, and so she's posting all these TikToks going after Whitney because she knows that that's going to be what the viewers want to see. And I think it's a classic case of like somebody who saw that this person was the villain season one, and so they go into season two suddenly having this hard stance of that I do not like them, I hate them. And then it looks like they're the obsessed ones who can't get over it when the audience has moved on. And that's why you can never, like, as a cast member on these shows, assume that things are the villain's going to stay the villain season to season, and that you can predict what the audience is going to feel and allow that to guide your actions, because you're always going to be a season behind when you try to do that. And so that's why it's better to just say what you really feel and give your honest real opinions in that moment, because generally that's going to serve you a lot better than trying to do what the audience wants. And I think that's a little bit of what the trap that Michaela's fallen into here.
Oh yeah, agreed. She definitely wanted the views on those TikToks and playing into that. So I think it's just she's just harping on that for too long
Yeah.
here. But it is what it is. But then here's where we see Taylor and Dakota talk about their breakup. Essentially, what Taylor says that she thinks that they need to take a step back from each other in order to allow them both to move forward and heal. So finally, Taylor's standing up for herself here and definitely made the right decision in allowing them to process being apart and co-parenting in that way. So, did you think Taylor made the right choice here?
Yeah, absolutely. They both need to go their own ways for a little bit, do their own thing, heal independently, and then, eventually if they come back together and they've both worked on themselves and they both feel like they're in a better place where they can, let go of the past, move forward together, great. That's the ideal scenario here, of course, because they have a kid together. But if they don't, if they go their separate ways and decide that they're better off by themselves separately, then that's great too. And it's better to do that than to have a toxic environment for their kid and live in this toxic situation that's clearly not working at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. So I feel bad. Taylor now has to co-parent now with two of her exes, essentially. So
Yeah,
that's not an easy situation, but it's definitely better for her mental health to not have to be stressed as much as she was dealing
for
with the
sure.
code. But next up, last but not least, in this first half of what we're going to talk about for this episode, well, we see Whitney has her baby shower, and Whitney invited everyone, but not everyone goes, obviously. And Jen arrives and tells Whitney that Layla was the one who wrote the note saying that Jen was fake. So this is where we find out who it was. So it's Layla writing that. And then Taylor, Macy, and Miranda all go as well. But Jessie decides to have a competing hibachi dinner at her house for everyone else who decided not to go. So, which was interesting to hear that they were having another party, basically. But do you think that the girls should have gone to Whitney's baby shower? Or do you think it made sense for them to have their own hibachi night?
I think that I mean, I guess because they were also like having I think there were enough of them that like didn't feel close to Whitney. I think it's better if they felt like they were going to cause a scene there if they went,
Yeah.
then like yes, it's better to not ruin the event and just to have your own thing and do that separately. But I mean, look, like I think with these shows, like you're a cast member, like this is your job to go to an event. Like even if you maybe in the real world wouldn't have gone to this for Whitney when you're not getting along with her, like I think overall, yeah, like just go to the event and be with the rest of the cast. If it's an all cast event, it's an all cast event, unless something like seriously horrible happened to where like you think that you would get in a physical fight with someone if you were in a room with them. Just go. I think 99% of the time.
Yeah, no, that was interesting to see that split, but I think it did make sense for this situation just because they were really not close to Whitney at all. They're like, well, we wouldn't invite her to our baby shower. Like, why are we going to her baby shower? Kind of thing. But yeah. And then obviously we get some drama though on the other side. We get to hear how Jessie admits to swinging in the past, but she says that she's hurt because she confided in Jen with that information and now she's using it against her. So Demi and Jesse think Jen is going to continue throwing out accusations against them both. And I feel like here it's just like they're just trying to take jabs at each other sort of situation. But do you think it was wrong for Jen to out Jesse's swinging past?
I think that Jen seems to, yeah, like kind of have these things like in her back pocket about Demi and Jesse, like with Demi and the Vanderpump Villa situation, and with Jesse and the swinging pass. Like she's kind of like threatening a bit to kind of out these things, and I never loved that type of tit for tat, but. I think in this case, like, yeah, they've also really been using things against Jen as well that she shared with them about her marriage, which yes, it was. I think those things were on camera, so I guess that's more fair game, to be fair here. But I think that these were things that were going to probably come out regardless. At least the Vanderpump Villa stuff, of course. Maybe not the swinging past with Jesse, but it is what it is. I guess they're both kind of playing that same game.
Yeah, I know. It gives us good drama to talk about, though. There's not a shortage of drama here.
Yeah.
But last up, we also see at the baby shower how Jen brings up the Vanderpump Villa situation with Demi and Taylor, so she talks about it with Taylor at the baby shower and reveals the fact that Macy got a Sinner Sunday confession from someone who claims to have slept with Brett when Demi was away. So that was interesting development here, which I was like, wow, is Brett cheating on Demi, or like how often did this happen, or is this true? Like what's going on here? But what do you believe here, and do you think this is true? That I guess maybe you have more information, so maybe you can share more. But I don't know what they talk about in the second half of the season. But here, it really seems like it is true that Brett did cheat on Demi.
Well, in this case, like I was a little bit confused because at this point I was like, did Macy verify this at all, or did somebody just like randomly say it? Like, did they send proof? I know Macy said she asked for proof, but did they send it to her, or was she just like, I just got this and I don't know? Like, I'm assuming that there could be some truth to it because there was truth with the Taylor Dakota situation, but I wasn't
Yeah, I
sure
don't
like
know.
if there was any proof given, because if not, then like I don't, I'm not gonna believe it until there is proof.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually don't remember. I don't think they had proof,
Because these are
but
all anonymous.
yeah, they're
Like, so
anonymous.
when they're
Are these
submitted, so
Sinner
it's not like she
Sundays?
even was submitted.
Are they just trying to cause drama? Like what? What are
Right,
they?
which I would think, like, after the audience saw season one and how these Sinner Sunday confessions played into the show, I'm sure tons, hundreds of people are probably sending Macy, like, anonymous tips that are completely fake just in an effort to, like, potentially get on the show.
That could be true. So maybe Brett never did cheat on Demi.
Yeah, so, like, until, like, someone sends Macy proof, I am going to say I don't believe it.
Okay, that's fair. Well, we'll have a lot to see in the upcoming 5 episodes. Well, I have a lot to see in the upcoming 5 episodes.
They're
Um,
good. They're really, really good. I'm
yes,
excited to
I'm
talk about
excited.
them.
Yes, but I feel like there's more to come on this stuff. I'm sure there's new developments as well with in terms of all the girls and their exes or their current husbands and all of that stuff. But I'm excited to see what's to come, and we'll be talking about that again next week. And I'll share my thoughts on what's going on. And Michael, you obviously have watched it all already, so I'm
Yeah.
excited for that. But thanks so much for listening, everyone. Don't forget to follow us on social media and listen wherever you get your podcasts. So Let's Chat Reality, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye, everyone.